Happy Mother's Day to every mother, grandmother, godmother, auntie who showed up like a mother. This morning is for you. I want to begin with some words from Jesus. He says, "I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you." Jesus speaks these words on the night before his death. His disciples are frightened. They don't understand where he's going or why. And into that fear, he makes a promise. "I will not leave you alone. I will send an advocate, the Spirit of truth, and that advocate will abide with you and in you." This morning, I want to suggest that many of us have already seen this promise lived out in the woman who raised us. When I was 6 years old, the night before my birthday, I sat on the edge of my bed and I cried. Not because anything bad happened. I cried because I loved being 6 so much and I didn't want to leave it. I didn't want to move on to being 7. And my mom came and sat beside me, and she said something that I've still never forgotten. She told me, "You are not just going to be 7. You are still 6 and 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. You carry all of it with you." She was teaching me something profound, that love doesn't erase what came before. That is exactly what Jesus promises when he speaks of the advocate, a presence that abides, that stays, that holds, that carries us through every season. My mom was, for me, a living picture of that. She showed up in the quiet moments when I didn't even have words for what I was feeling. She sat with me in the tender, uncertain places, and she made sure I knew I wasn't alone. That same spirit, that same impulse towards presence, is what Jesus is promising in his disciples in this passage. And it leads him to something that I want us to sit with next. Jesus says in this passage, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." And I know that can sound really heavy, all the rules and obligations, a list to follow. But I grew up in a home where one commandment was lived out so thoroughly that it didn't feel like a rule. It was just like oxygen. And that is, love thy neighbor. It showed up in 100 small ways. A neighbor who needed a meal got a meal. A stranger who needed directions got walked to their destination. Someone in our community going through a hard time got shown up for, because that's just what you did. Nobody in our home was allowed to be indifferent to someone else's suffering. As a child, I didn't understand why. Some of it felt like inconvenience, but as I've grown, I've come to understand those weren't burdens. Those were invitations into a way of seeing the world the way God sees it. Every person is worthy of attention. Every moment has a chance to be, for someone else, the presence they needed. My mother and grandmother kept that commandment, not because they had to, but because love, when it's real, just moves that way. It goes toward people. It doesn't wait to be asked. Jesus says in verse 19, "Because I lived, you also will live." Hearing this, I only think of one person. When I look at my grandmother, I see the source, the headwaters of a river that has been flowing through this family for generations. Her faithfulness shaped my mother, and my mother shaped me. This is what generational faith looks like. It's not a relic preserved under glass. It's alive, it moves, and it asks something of everyone it touches. The resurrection promise of Jesus is not only about what happens after death. It's about the life that gets passed forward, the courage, the tenderness, the stubborn hope that one generation breathes into the next. Jesus will not leave you orphaned. God has kept that promise through the woman who raised us. Through their presence, their values, the faith they passed down like a torch. To those of you who are mothers, grandmothers, who have mothered someone who needed mothering, you have been doing holy work. You may not have had the title or the recognition, but you have been advocates in the truest sense of that word. And to all of us, may we receive that love as well. May we not waste what has been poured into us, and may we live in the way that passes this faith forward, so that long after we are gone, someone will be saying, because she lived faithfully, I also will live. Amen.